Hi folks, good time zone, and welcome back to Witchin with Faith. I'm doing this for a second week in a row, and I'm so on top of my stuff and proud of myself, so I'm just having a moment. This week we're going to talk about protection, protective workings, protective magic in a very kind of basic, broad term. Again, I promise I will stop disclaimering with this, but I come at this with no authority. I'm still very much learning. This is a learning tool for me. I hope it helps other people too, and we can all just learn together, you know? So with that in mind, let's hop right on into it. Protective magics, protective workings, these are things that we do in our practices that protect us against unwanted energies, again, interferences, spirits, potential workings from other practitioners that are targeted against us, as well as, you know, other people that we love, protecting them, our tools, our homes, and also can be to protect us from ourselves sometimes. Protection workings are considered a staple in any practitioner's kind of working, and it's often seen as one of the first things that any learning witch or occultist or magical practitioner should start looking into. With that being said, I do want to put another little disclaimery bit here, okay? Because when you're getting into the craft for the first time, or when I was getting into the craft for the first time, and you look for sources about where to start, so much of what I experienced in the start of my journey was you absolutely have to start with protection. You can't start with anything else other than you have to start with protection, because all the things will get you, all of the bad energies will get to you, people can hex you and curse you all the time, and that's just not the case. In my experience, you may be particularly unlucky, I would hope not. These things do occur, but they're just not happening as often. They made it sound like, do you know when you're a kid and you're at school and they're doing the substance talk, right? And they make it sound like there's going to be someone on every corner offering you free substances. And you grow up and you learn that life just doesn't work that way. That's what it felt like when I was starting my journey. It just like there would be so much negativity coming in all directions, and you had to put up a numerous amount of protections against it because it would always be coming. They made it sound like there was bad energy, bad practitioners around every corner just ready to mess my life up or mess someone else's life up. That's just not the case. So if you are starting out, please don't fear that like I did. Because of that, it took me so much longer to get anything achieved in my craft. Honestly, the most common experience that I've experienced, and I would love to hear what your most common experience is for like bad energy or anything like that. The top two is going to be accumulated energy of like unwanted energy, just not cleansing out a space well enough. Or for example, you'll be doing a working, but you haven't fully like cleared your mind, you're not in the right brain state, so you've still got half of the day in the back of your head as you're starting a working, and that can mess you up. And the second one is likely as a result of that is backfired workings from yourself. And that's what I was talking about with protection from yourself, because it happens to us all. If you've never had a backfired working, props to you, good for you, but it does occasionally happen. Again, not all that often. You probably won't have a working backfire all that often, as much as it will just not go quite how you wanted it to. But when these things kind of affect your existence a little bit, it's often not that someone's hexed you or cursed you. It's more likely that you might have just brought the wrong energy into something. That being said, it can be true that bad energies, bad practitioners, bad spirits can come your way and mess with you. And so having protective workings in place against all of those is a staple in your craft. Protection as one of the foundational things to know in your workings is important, and it is why it is considered one of the basics to start with. I just wanted to put that disclaimer in there because it really did mess with me at the start of my journey. I'm a very literal person, and so I took that all in. So we're protecting against those unwanted energies, against any workings that could come across us, bad energies, bad spirits. And your protective workings range from very simple, everyday kind of magic to much larger, more intricate workings. And having a range of those things can be incredibly helpful for layering up your shield. So for your everyday stuff, working with a little rock or a crystal, depending on what you've got around, it doesn't have to be a crystal. I'm a crystal person. I've been collecting crystals since I was a little girl, before I even got heavily into anything, and I've built up a collection from that through the years, and so I have access to many different crystals. But keeping a little crystal that you've worked the energies with in your pocket or in your bra, if you're anything like me, just pop them right in there for those protective purposes, or creating sigils that you can write on your shoe so you can take it with you as you leave the house, as a lot of protective work is based on space as well as your person. Having little things that you can take with you as you go are fantastic options. As well as another thing that can be done on a sort of everyday level is a lot of kitchen witchery, because a lot of the herbs and components that you would put into anything could easily go into baked goods and things like that, and that way you can share your love with someone and feel that you are protecting them and yourself, and it's a really nice way to honor yourself, honor someone else. You can even offer it and have that layer of protection. Another great one is just drawing sigils into your makeup and feeling protected there, or into your skincare routine. If you're, moisturizing, popping in there, as well as drawing sigils whenever you're cleaning as well. So cleansing and protection go really hand in hand. And if you're cleaning a surface with a spray or something, drawing a sigil into that and working with that. Making a saltwater solution and, combining it with your saliva to lock things like mirrors is just really nice, simple, low energy, and I'm going to advocate for the low energy till the day that I perish because it's important, but good, simple working practices. More complex workings can be a little bit more legwork and more groundwork to prepare for them. There'll be research involved, there'll be checking the weather, the time of day, the moon cycle, what planet to work with. There are much more intricate little layers that go into that work, but that allows for more potential intricate layers coming out of it as well in your practice. Wards typically fit in the more complex workings and are considered a good sort of maintenance thing for protection. The most sort of famous in this scenario is the witch's jar, which you which you fill with protective herbs and correspondences. There's usually glass or something reflective in there to sort of bounce those energies away. You put a piece of yourself in there, your DNA, your hair, something that can be representational of you. So anything that would be sent your way would go to the jar. People typically bury that on their properties or just outside their property. And that can also be utilized for any loved ones too. That can also work with things like the classic witch's ladder or the wreaths that you can make, and working in protective items and little things into that. Working with bigger home crystals or rocks is a great one. You can put them in specific places. You can draw little sigils under those as well. Personal favorite of mine is plant protectors. I don't have a garden where I live, so we have like 3 plants on that little window behind me. One is a basil plant that is fantastic. I love that basil plant. We have a little strawberry plant, which is not for any workings, and then we also have a brand new mint plant, which I'm really excited about. And I plan on putting another one onto the windowsill in the bedroom, which is where I do most of my workings that you see. Having a plant that you sort of work with, you charge with the duty of protection for your home, and you feed it and you nurture it, and that is a very good visual way as well of seeing if something is wrong, if it suddenly starts to perish or wilt when otherwise it's got a really good environment and it's got everything it needs. If you are looking for a book on how to do a lot of that as well, that goes into much more detail than I will in this little video, this Protection Reversal Magic is fantastic by Jason Miller. And additionally, I will sing the praises of Psychic Witch by Matt Oren till the day I perish as well, because that is a fantastic book. It does go through a couple little things in there, I believe, about protecting yourself, protecting your psychic abilities and your mind. Fantastic options. And with these more complex workings, we can allow for more intricate results. We can work in things like visual or audio warnings. So for example, You can work in that if your protective barriers are being tested, or if something's coming your way and it's being picked up by something, that you receive the sound of an alarm in your head, you know, or that you see something specific. Usually I like to go for that in threes, so it doesn't set you off every time. For example, if you work it in that you would see flies when your protective barriers are being messed with, you wouldn't want to see one fly because you'd see that like all the time, right? But if you saw 3 flies at once, like 3 big flies, then that might be more of a sign than it could be a coincidence or just everyday life. Or just having a visual that would pop up in your head if you felt like that was being challenged. So for example, the visual of someone, for instance, picking a lock could be quite helpful to get that sort of energy and message received if your boundaries are being tested or pushed or challenged. And then something else you can do in order to raise your protection levels is to work with spirits or deities. You can build working relationships, offer things to them, create space for them, and in return they may assist you and your protection and your protective workings. But that relationship has to be there, I think. You can't just rock up and ask them to do stuff for you. I mean, you can try. I wouldn't recommend it. And if you have success, then power to you. I don't think it would work that way though. At least not in my experience. Additionally, if you are going to work with any spirit or deity, demon, whatever it is that you are going to work with, just make sure that you are keeping up on any promises that you make. So if you've said, oh, hey, if I can work with you and, you've made that relationship, you've built that up and you want that protective practice from them, and you say something like, oh, I will offer you, some wine every day for the next 2 weeks, and then you stop doing that halfway through, then you're going to have some adverse effects that come in there. So keep up with your promises. That's just a good practice for life, I feel, unless you absolutely can't. But then, communication is key, right? So some simple correspondences that are ready to hand usually, that can be used in a lot of protective workings, no matter what you do. Mint, as I said earlier, I really like working with mint. It's UK native, it's super hardy, and it smells really nice, so that's always very nice. As well as rosemary, not a UK native, but still incredible for protective works. Salt, oak as well. If you're looking to work with wood, oak is a really good option, seen as very protective. Using things like eggshell is a fantastic option as well. I really like working with eggshell. Make sure you treat it if that's something that you have to do for your eggshells. Pop them in the oven and crush them up. Make sure you've washed them as well. Using eggshell is inherently protective if you think about what the egg is and what it means, and how the inside is that gooey egg, and that shell is so good at protecting that inside that's so fragile. There are spices and plants that can be used specifically as well. So for example, cinnamon we often use for sort of abundance and prosperity, but it's also quite protective too, and that can work there. And with those herbs, those spices, you can do so much. You can make a tea, or the kitchen witchery we were talking about, making a nice rosemary and sea salt focaccia. Oh my goodness, that sounds like a great plan. I might just be hungry. Putting those things into a bath and protecting and cleansing yourself at the same time. Working those things into a spray so that you can use it at those doors, at those windowsills, on yourself if you go outside. Herbs, spices, plants offer a lot of versatility in that space. We spoke about crystals already, for example. I'm a big fan of a few specific crystals for just general protection. I think it's true that if you want protecting in a certain thing, finding correspondences for that thing can also be helpful alongside other things, or depending on how you're working them on their own. But for general protection, I really love hematite because it's nice and grounding and protecting. Tourmaline is a great sort of negative, unwanted energy absorber. One of my favorites is obsidian, and this one is one of my absolute favorites. So this little bad boy is my snowflake obsidian in an egg shape. I love crystals in an egg shape. It's good for, this is my little protect my peace crystal, because snowflake obsidian inherently has a balance to it and is protective, and the egg, I think, can symbolize that protection as well as, rebirth, new birth, things like that. So those would be my go-to crystals. But let's say I wanted protection against anxiety, bad dreams, psychic attack, I might gravitate towards an amethyst, for example. And crystals are great because if you have big pieces, they can be used in the home, or little pieces can be used in the home, honestly. But the smaller pieces can be used as jewelry to tuck into that bra or that pocket. Very good on the go kind of things. As well as having like a tactile thing that you can, like worry stones are really good for that. But again, if you've got regular stones that you're really into or that have that kind of significance to you, they work just as well. Candles are really easy as well. You can even carve little sigils into them or anoint them with those herbs, with oils that you've prepared that have those protective qualities, and that will sort of activate as that burns down. Black candles are typically seen as protective as well as banishing. But again, if you're working with a specific form of protection, if you want to protect your money, you might work with a green candle and a black candle, who's to say? And then there is the classic go-to of visualization. Visualizing a shield after some meditation and seeing that shield form and sit around you and regularly conjuring that up in your witch's eye and your mind's eye, just as effective, is so effective. And if we're talking about things that we have physically, it doesn't have to be a special candle or a special crystal or specially anointed things or herbs or anything like that. You have things that you connect with that give you a sense of protection, a sense of peace, of calm, of comfort that would work better for you, like an item of clothing from a parent that makes you feel safe, or perhaps it's the words from a friend that comforted you one day. You can utilize those things. I think some of the strongest results in these practices are going to come from something that you connect with the most. So in those scenarios, do what works for you, have what works for you work for you. It can be as simple as drawing a few little crosses or saying a few protective words. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Do what works for you, and you will feel whether or not that is something that is working or not. I think a good part of protective magics being one of those basics or foundational things in any craft is that it's another way of listening into those energies that you're getting used to and feeling when there are little breaks in them and patching those up essentially. But again, I would love to hear what your protection go-tos are. What do you use? Is there anything that I haven't mentioned or anything unusual that you use for you or that works for you? I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear how you feel about the video as well, so please let me know in the comments if you don't mind. I hope you have the most fabulous time zone. You stay fed, watered, rested, and that you're loved, because I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.